Recently we received the news that Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets staff has come to an agreement to move forward from the trading talk to focus on the upcoming season, playing alongside Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons. So here's my thoughts on KD and the Brooklyn Nets. I called it this last season when Phoenix was scorching hot in the regular season. But my premise stemmed from me taking a few LS on FanDuel. I've won a few bets on FanDuel, but I noticed something after losing a few games where I believe should have been definite wins. I had to take a step back and scope the whole gambling scene. Because there is an unspoken rule that says the house doesn't lose. That means in a casino there's cameras at every angle, and whether you know it or not, all your moves are being watched and countered by algorithms that won't play into your favor if you continue with your primal nature to want to keep going until you win big. It may not be PC to imply that these games are rigged, but I was starting to view the NBA in the same sort of reality as reality TV. And if you ever watch Basketball Wives or any other housewife show on VH1 and whatnot, you can agree that most of those scenarios are predispositioned. Meaning yes, you might get footage of a live reaction when a drink is thrown in the face of another character on the show, but everything that led up to that moment was orchestrated by producers to cause that theatrical effect that the supposed audience wants to see. I say that to say this: me being a former student athlete, knowing how much work I put in only to reach a ceiling, could never discredit the work professional athletes put in to get to that level. But in the same breath the house has to make its quota, and greed only calls for more and more, to the point that the powers that be, who I can't say I know for sure who, but the puppet masters pulling the strings behind the scenes, must definitely get a kick out of seeing people so sure of a bet only to lose it at the last minute in an upset and turn of events in the game. I remember one instance where I was at work and couldn't actually view the game, but I was watching the score, and in the beginning it looked normal, like for example the Miami Heat playing Minnesota. Sure, Minnesota was a team on the uprise, but Miami being the number 1 seed, or at least top 5 through the season, I'm expecting the outcome to be a win for the Heat. But as the night progressed, I'm checking the score, and by the end of the third quarter, Minnesota is back in the game, and by the fourth have the lead. After Minnesota gets the win, I find out Jimmy Butler didn't play that game. So I had an aha moment. The epiphany was, I shouldn't have gone into any bet without getting the scoop on what players are sitting out for whatever reason. So whether injury or load management, those players not playing really can swing the games one way or another. And with that, you can have a ton of uniform bidders betting on games that they think should be definite wins based on statistics on paper, but bad calls by the refs, players sitting out, and even a worst-case scenario or conspiracy theory I'd somewhat subscribe to: certain players possibly get an envelope or other incentives to help throw the game, or maybe throw the parlay bets off by not making shots at a rate that they are normally known to make, or get ejected from technical fouls where they can't finish the game. If so many people are betting on a for sure Golden State Warriors win, but then Draymond Green gets ejected and the team's chemistry goes to shit, and they end up losing. So now you can see how I would think the game could sort of be scripted, right? So imagine my train of thought, how I could figure the powers that be would think it would make for a great storyline to have the Phoenix Suns win the championship so Chris Paul can finally get a ring. And since the LeBron storyline has been played over and over, they can have the Lakers tank this season, which they actually did. So that means if this is Chris Paul's year, then the Brooklyn Nets might as well sit this one out also, which will make for an even bigger story for next season. And even now in the off-season, we see KD has stirred up so much conversation over him requesting a trade mid-contract. This put a halt on all other teams making trades in the free agency. Now the odds appear to be in the favor of the Nets, despite the loss of James Harden. These are all storylines that make the unknown so volatile. This will make for a great amount of losses for sports betting due to uncertainty. I think everyone was stunned by the Warriors winning it all again, but again that made for a great comeback storyline for Klay Thompson. Again, having that element of surprise is profitable for the casinos. Now I think I'm going to go with my initial call and say this upcoming season will be the redemption storyline for KD. Even though those Clippers are looking good if Kawhi comes back healthy, but they might save that storyline for a final showdown for the crown of Los Angeles when LeBron finally gets to play with his son and LeBron can go out with a bang. It's all cinematic theater at this point if you're like me and fell down the rabbit hole of conspiracy theory. I do have my reasons to believe these theories though. I didn't just wake up with this epiphany. A series of events led me to this state. Nonetheless, I can see Kyrie having a breakout season and finally getting his revenge on Boston. I can see Boston dismantling and rebuilding their whole squad after next season's upset. One thing I have to say, and I've said this since KD first arrived in BK. The Nets aren't going to win a thing as long as Bruce Brown is in the starting lineup. Sure, they hyped Bruce Brown up to be a great asset who hustles on every possession. But sadly it's a fact that he is undersized and the hype surrounding him is great for commentary. We all know there needs to be one more all-star to really help the Nets over that hurdle. Now if Ben Simmons can step up to the plate and be that ball handler who's bigger than the guards defending him. He doesn't even need to be a scorer, more that they need him to be a distributor, an outstanding defender, and cause turnovers that will lead to fast breaks where in transition he shines the best. That would keep the pace of the game in the favor of the Nets. But that would also mean the Nets will need a reliable big to fill that 4 spot as power forward. Right now LaMarcus Aldridge is shaky. He's great as a contribution off the bench, but they really need some young legs to run the floor as a starter. I think Andre Drummond is okay as a center with Claxton backing him, but to be honest, Blake Griffin is a total wash and should be offloaded along with Bruce Brown in a package deal for some other big to fill that 4 spot, or at the least offloaded for cap space. That's the one position I wonder about, whether it will prevent the Nets from having the perfect roster to contend night in and night out with the young squads who will look to give the Nets their best work every time. I have to say the Detroit Pistons are looking like they'll be the most improved team in the league with their young core. Nothing is given. Well, that is if you don't subscribe to the theory that this whole thing is fixed and rigged to begin with. But at the surface of it all, the Nets still have to go out and play 8+ games and maintain good health. And that traditional lineup that they could go with, making Kyrie the point guard and Simmons at the 4, will not give them much of an edge against these young teams, as they will bully Simmons at the 4 and then outrun Aldridge all night, making him less effective on offense, where his mid-range shots really do help a lot when adding up the score. If Aldridge is running around trying to guard these young bulls, his legs won't be there to support his field goal percentage, even though that mid-range shot is a high percentage shot. At the end of the day, I am rocking with the Nets and believe this will be an interesting season. I hope my predictions come true, as I plan to bet on the Nets often this coming season. Hopefully I don't jinx myself and the powers that be hear this and think it would be a good idea to throw a monkey wrench in the game and hit New York City with some monkeypox vaccine mandates. What a tragedy that would be. But I believe they outplayed that deck of cards. I can't imagine what else they could have in their hand or up their sleeve to throw New York into a frenzy, causing another sit-out for Kyrie. I hope the Nets can finally get it together and develop that team chemistry to finally get that ring for the city, since we know the Knicks won't anytime soon. And with that being said, hope you enjoyed my second audio commentary of all things men, and tune in to find out when the next episode drops. Until then, peace in the Middle East. Oh yeah, by the way, let me know your thoughts in the comment section, and if you have any topics of any and all things concerning men you'd like to hear my thoughts on, write them in the comments as well, and I will try to address them sooner than later. And don't forget to like, subscribe and share my content on all platforms if you dig and want to support the machine. That would definitely drive me to bring you even more.